and welcome to the stories of Northern life from the Sault Ste. Marie Museum. If you follow us on our social media accounts, you know we started the clock for the season on April 14th. We always get a million questions about the clock and the tower, so I thought I'd share some of that information and sit down with our current caretaker of the clock tower, Rick Datson, on how he starts the clock each season. So let's get into it. The clock tower was complete at the same time as the rest of the building in 1906, but the clock itself was not installed until 1912. Until the clock was added, the vacant openings were filled with round glass window panes. These were stored in the peak of the tower until the museum was moved into the building in 1983. Only one of the original windows could be salvaged, and it was incorporated into the wall of the Skylight Gallery during the renovations in 1988. And if you come by the museum, you'll be sure to recognize it. The clock was built by J. Smith and Sons in Derby, England. The Smiths of Derby clock-making tradition started in 1735 and continues to this day. The cost of the clock was £185. The clock was shipped, along with the bell, from England aboard the SS Tunison and arrived in Montreal. From there, it was shipped by train to Ottawa for inspection before being sent to the Sault by train. When the clock arrived, it was discovered that the tower was not tall enough to accommodate the workings of the clock. The crank mechanism needed to be a floor below the faces of the clock, so the tower had to be rebuilt. The original roof was maintained, and the new tower had smooth sides and incorporated regular transom windows on each side. I, for one, am happy they raised it up because it wasn't much of a tower before. The second level of the tower added a lot more height and grandeur to the building. During the time of the caretaker in the building, from 1906 to 1974, the clock and chime were on a 3-day wind, and the clock ran year-round. After the era of the caretaker, the clock remained a 3-day wind. However, the clock was shut down during the winter months, as there was not a full-time caretaker to monitor the clock on a daily basis. The clock has been shut down during the winter months, usually before December, and turned back on when the snow begins to melt, since 1984. The reason for this is that the faces are not set flush with the tower walls. They are recessed about 8 inches, and when there is a buildup of snow or ice in these recesses, the hands can easily become jammed and the motor will continue to run, which in turn will strip the gears. In 1992, it was determined that the structure of the tower itself and the tower roof were in bad need of repair, and there was also water leaking into the mechanism of the clock. In 1993, the museum requested from the Ontario Historical Society that one of their experts come to the museum to assess the clock and tower. This was completed by Mr. Spencer Higgins, a conservator with the Ontario Historical Society, and a 14-page report was presented to the museum. The museum applied for a grant for the purpose of having the tower repaired. This was a joint federal and provincial strategy for an infrastructure improvement works. The project grant only covered restoration of the tower. The clock, although in concern, did not qualify under the infrastructure program. However, the clock faces were considered to be part of the exterior of the tower. The restoration of the clock was completed at this time. The clock mechanism was actually taken out of the tower and shipped to Abernyth and Sons in Toronto to be refurbished. When it was returned and placed back into the tower, the mechanism was changed to be motor-driven. Now it gets plugged in and we keep an eye on it, but it runs smoothly all spring, summer, and fall. Now let's chat with Rick. Hi, Rick.
Hi, Mari.
I'm so happy you got to come on here today and just chat about the starting process of the clock.
Me too.
So, could you just run us through from start to finish, how do we turn the clock on?
Well, the first thing we have to do is check the clock tower to make sure everything is safe and there's nothing falling apart or things that are loose. And then I inspect the motor for the clock really quick, make sure everything's good there. Then we go up to the top floor and the gears are covered with plastic bags and some plastic containers just to keep the dust off them. So I take that stuff off and then I have to clean each gear with a rag just to make sure there's no dust or dirt grinding into the gears. Then a small drop of oil where it needs to be. And then I usually grab you and take you up to the top and have you stand outside while I loosen the clutch on the motor and slowly turn the clock gears around. And so you can tell me what time it is.
Yep.
And once we get to the correct time, I tighten up the clutch and then we plug her in and she's good to go.
Yeah. It's super fun getting to go up there and
it's fun.
See it all.
Not too many people get to go up there, so
No.
it's a really a back in time kind of look.
Yes. So when we went up there last, I realized after I came back in and shot some footage that there were some names written.
Yeah.
So then I went back up, took note of all the names. So the names that I have are George Nelson from 1926.
Wow.
R.B. Roof Repair, 140528. Then Cliff in 1934, he wrote his name real big twice on there.
Yeah, I saw that one.
Then there's Gabe from 1977.
Huh.
A Brad in July 14th, 2010.
Wow.
A Mark, same date. Then a Mike in 2016, Brandy V in 2016, and Eldon in 2016. Do you think you remember those the 2016? Anyone from that?
Just Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what did Mike do?
He worked out front with us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good
Very
guy.
cool. Yeah, so I thought that was super cool, and then you'll have to write your name on there.
I am going to have to put my name up there now. I've been here for almost 20 years, so yeah, I'm going to have to do that.
Yeah. And how did you learn to start the clock and that whole process?
The original curator, Kim Forbes, well, not the original curator of the museum, but when I started here,
Yep.
He showed me how to do it.
Yeah.
He would take me up there every year and I get him to help clean the clock and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Super
So he
cool.
showed me all that stuff, and then there's probably a lot more to it, but I have it running for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
So we're good so far.
That's awesome. Thank you for keeping it running for all of us.
If there's any problems that went, we would have to call an expert to do it. But as far as just maintenance for yearly maintenance, I'm good.
Woohoo. Perfect. Thank you for chatting with me.
Thanks for having me.